All right, Gearheads, welcome to the show. We just watched the Formula One opening race of the season in Bahrain. Max Verstappen wins, but the headline is 41-year-old Alonso on the podium. Wow. This is John Massengill, and I am joined in the studio here in Austin, Texas by my friend Jonathan Green. Mr. Green, how are you, sir?
Well, on the lead up to this, we shouldn't be surprised that Alonso's on the podium because on Saturday morning we were talking about a potential, pole position. He topped two of the free practices. We knew that Stroll was injured, and that was a brilliant effort by him. And they're now second in the championship by my adding up.
I think you're probably right. We also have on the show Bob Varsha over Zoom. Mr. Varsha, what'd you think?
Well, I think it was it was bittersweet for fans of Formula One. Obviously, Red Bull have a leg up on the field. They were just dominant in every possible way, although I don't think they picked up the point for fastest lap. But other than that, just a perfect performance. And on the other hand, we saw some bitter disappointment from teams like Haas and McLaren and Ferrari. I mean, it looked like the same old Ferrari we saw last year. Mechanical problems, electronic problems, dicey pit decisions. Why they didn't manage to get Sainz on fresher tires late in the race, I don't know, because he was simply fighting a retreating action against the rest of the field. It was sad, but we saw just a fantastic battle. Alonso voted driver of the race, rightly so. Great battles. I think Aston Martin has never gotten as much TV time, and that's all down to Alonso with his slashing moves and closing down the cars ahead of him. I'll reiterate what they said on the broadcast. For Aston Martin to get up there, beat the Ferraris, beat the Mercedes, that's pretty astonishing stuff.
Well, I wasn't sure Haas was even in this race. I don't think they showed him on the television until about 5 laps to go. Jonathan, you commented that MoneyGram's probably not excited about that, but
not really. My comment, the commentators said how ominous this was, and that really is the right word because it was a 1-2 that we've seen many times before, but this is a new season. They didn't come great out of testing. They weren't 100% happy with the car, but they just annihilated the competition by a country mile. At one point, I think it was like after 4 laps, I turned around and said, is he really 4 seconds ahead already?
Yeah. And then the gap was at like 40 seconds at one point, maybe. Yeah. In fact, it was more than that because that was the gap from Perez to third. So it was, I don't know, close to a minute at one point.
Yeah, there used to be an ad, and I don't know if it was in this country, but there used to be an ad that said that the future was bright, the future is orange. It was a telephone company, and unfortunately, I think the future is orange.
Yeah.
Orange for Holland and Verstappen. But, I mean, Perez also drove very well. I mean, they're bulletproof. I mean, you see Ferrari break down again. You see Mercedes obviously, admitting before the race even started that they weren't going to be in the running. I actually thought they did better than they thought they would do, actually, both Hamilton and Russell. But the facts remain the same. They've been beaten by a customer team.
We also have on the show Dave O'Neill, who's just joined us, former Haas F1 team manager. Hey, Dave, how are you, sir?
I'm very good, thank you. Nice start to the season, I guess, in certain areas and for certain teams. I think not a bad race all in all. I think that my opinion should have been that Ferrari should have showed their hand yesterday rather than waiting to try and be clever today with the tyre strategy.
Yeah.
We have some interesting stuff going on there. I mean, we talked about the Haas. It was quick over 1 lap, but obviously just didn't have the race pace.
Unfortunately, there's 57.
Hey, Dave.
Yes.
I was just going to ask you, had you been on the team radio to Alonso, would you have also been silent on the fact that it was Stroll that hit him? I don't think he knew till after the race.
Well, I think he knew exactly what happened there. He's just he knows who's boss, and again, he knows who's boss during the race, but he showed who was boss at the end there. He got it done, and absolute faultless drive from Alonso. 2 or 3 occasions he had the car so close, probably touching, rubbing, whatever, but so close.
Right.
And to have that skill set at 41, I don't know. I mean, he's showing people different things, and I think we're going to see a lot more of it this year, which would be fantastic.
Dave, let me ask you a question. If you sort of look at it on paper now, or as you look from the 10,000-meter rule, is this a flash in the pan for Aston Martin, or are they genuinely going to challenge both Mercedes and Ferrari for the rest of the season?
Well, I don't think it's a flash in the pan, just to answer quickly, but I think, this surface is a very tricky surface you've seen in Bahrain. It's not great for the tyres, so there's a huge amount of strategy required there. And also, someone like Alonso can look after that rubber and nurse it all the way through the race, being able to give himself and the team the opportunity to make those moves that he did. So I don't think so. I don't, who knows? I hope they put a win up over the course of the season, but they're definitely going to be in the top 6, I think, for the remainder of the year. Looks good.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things that struck me was Alonso's unflagging aggression throughout the race. I mean, when he finally got by, Lewis Hamilton, it was, all right, let's go. I mean, he sounded like Tom Brady on the sidelines with the Buccaneers. And then he got, I don't remember who it was, Sainz, I guess, when he got by to get the podium position, he got on the radio, said, I got him. That's a guy who is not 41 years of experience old. That is a guy who is just has this boundless enthusiasm for what he's doing. And to pile on to what Dave just said, the fact that he was able to keep the car and the tires under him, despite all those slashing moves. We often hear when guys are battling wheel to wheel or one behind the other, that, he's going to take all the life and energy out of his tires. Alonso seemed to have all the tire he needed, no matter how hard he pushed him. So I agree with Dave. I think this is not a one-off. Aston Martin's the real deal.
Let's see if we've got Chris Medland out in Bahrain. Looks like his mic is unmuted. Mr. Medland, what's going on out there?
It's just starting to settle down after the podium here, chaps. Some more fireworks went off after that because I don't think we got enough at the end of the race. So, it's finally starting to quieten down. I wanted just to agree there with both sets of comments because don't forget, I think we mentioned it on yesterday's qualifying show. So everyone needs to just tune in for that next week or the week after. But this Aston is 95% new. This is one of the most changed cars on the grid. So they surely have more learning to do, more potential in there. I think Alonso himself posted that last night on his Instagram saying plenty more potential to come from this car. So while Red Bull say they evolved their car and have kind of nailed it essentially, and that's why they look so strong in testing because they knew a lot about it from last year, Aston is still learning about this car. I think there's more progress to be made, just from setup and getting data with it. So, yeah, I think to start at this point, it's only going to get better for them.
Wow, it's really crazy to think about. I mean, and it's such a monumental achievement, guys, to break into the top 3 with a team with a car that's 95% new. I mean, they got everything right to be able to do this.
A lot of new personnel, they started from scratch. People have to get to know each other, get their work habits down. They're building a new factory. I mean, everything is going on and changing in Aston Martin's world, and yet they've come up with a car this good.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we need to reset the clock. We'll be back after this.
Still hot on stream.
All right, we're still live on the YouTubes and the Facebooks. Who's on YouTube?
Think the disappointing bit is Leclerc not staying in the running to see whether Alonso could have hunted him down.
Yeah. And Dan, question for you. We saw a replay of Leclerc's car dying and him pulling off. Sounded to me like the engine was running just fine. He just wasn't getting power for some reason. And yet the team came back and said it was an engine problem. Does that make sense to you?
Sure, George, hang on. We'll put you on the
board. Not really.
board.
I think that there's probably a spin on words there. I think normally when you do have a catastrophic failure, the system.
All right, you got your phone board up?
Has shutdowns in place, so you'd see the dash, go down. But He definitely still had hydraulic pressure there because he was managing to bang the gears.
Shifting gears, yeah.
So, I mean, it could have been something simple like an input shaft, which comes out of the gearbox into the engine through the flywheel. That could have snapped. Could have been a final drive inside the box. I'm sure we'll get to find out soon, but
sure.
Hey, Dave,
smoke or steam coming out, so it seems strange.
Hey, Dave, your audio's coming through loud and clear. It's just a tiny bit echo. I don't know if you can maybe move in closer to your laptop, or if you got your earbuds, that's always great. But it's not a big deal. You sound clear. It's just a little echoey.
Okay.
Pull a blanket over your head.
It works.
It does work. Yes,
it does
the old
work.
personal sound booth trick.
Yes, exactly.
I've done it that way. Yep, I've voiced features and teases and things like that in the hotel.
Hey, and the car's the best place.
Right.
Bill Ricker says on YouTube, listening on XM, most common in Twitter. He was on time.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
The show, we were just commenting during the break about some insights from Mr. O'Neill. I thought that was good stuff you were talking about, Dave, about the possibility of mechanical failures. What give us a little insight on that?
Yeah, it's difficult to see, just from the pictures there. But, the one thing for sure is there was hydraulic pressure. And normally when the engine shuts down properly.
On the Ferrari, yeah.
You lose hydraulic pressure because that runs the hydraulic pump. But he was managing to go down the gears to see if he could bump start the engine and in any way get it going again. They're taught a few things to see if you can react and get out of the problem. So I think for me it seems like there's the drive is missing from the gearbox to the engine. You had a full dash mode on, so it looks like maybe a gearbox issue, input shaft, final drive, but the hydraulic pump was still working, so he could downshift, and also the dash was on, which wasn't showing any like horrendous alarms, flashing red or orange lights. So,
I think I saw. I think the one reader I saw was "Here we go again."
Yeah, I think that was a common theme on Twitter.
Right. While we're talking about those dashboards, NASCAR is using that driver's eye cam as well.
Yeah.
But they pixel out all of the information on the dash.
Yeah.
It's really kind of disappointing. Formula One, hey, look what's coming up. Look at the buttons they're hitting. Look at all the snide remarks that the team and the driver are making to each other. So kudos to F1 for allowing that. We get to see the whole driver picture from that really cool camera.
All right, I have some breaking news. Esteban Ocon has another time penalty. He's been penalized into next week, apparently.
Yes.
What the heck? He had a penalty.
No kidding.
He had a 5-second penalty, and then he had a 10-second penalty for not serving the 5-second penalty right, and then he had a 15-second penalty, and then I lost track. I have no idea. I don't even know what happened. Did he just give up? What happened?
Well, then he came back on the radio and said, "Hey, I always do this. Why are they starting to penalize me now?" I thought, what?
Not a great argument, right?
Nah.
No. I was guilty back then. Why am I getting penalized now?
Well, let me just run down the finishing order here. Max Verstappen finished first ahead of his teammate Sergio Perez. Then Fernando Alonso on the podium. Then Carlos Sainz in the other Ferrari that did finish. Lewis Hamilton in the fastest Mercedes in 5th. Then Lance Stroll finishing in 6th. George Russell, Valtteri Bottas, Pierre Gasly, and Albon in the Williams finishing 10th in the points. Then Yuki Tsunoda, Logan Sargent, our American, finishing 12th in his first race.
Good on him.
Yeah, we'll take that.
Up from 16th. Yep, good job.
And Kevin Magnussen in 13th in the Haas, and then Nick DeVries, the other rookie, Nico Hulkenberg in the other Haas, Zhou Guan Yu, and then the racers that did not finish, Lando Norris, Esteban Ocon, Charles Leclerc, and Oscar Piastri. Not a great day for McLaren. And Jonathan, I said to you while we were watching the race, the day that they did the car reveal.
We suck.
I think, yeah, that was what I said. I think Zach Brown stepped on the stage and says, "You like the car? Well, we're going to suck this year," and they are right so far.
It's funny because, as you know, I've just come back from New Zealand where McLaren was born. Thanks to Bruce. And it's their 60th anniversary this year. So, they really want to have a good year. It looks as though they're going to have a good year in Indy. But it's going to be a struggle in Formula One. And I think we're starting to see just how good Norris was of overdriving the car last year, and why Ricciardo's demise was on the cards, because the car's just not there.
Yeah. I want to check. I want to check with Chris Medland and see if he is going to be able to get out towards some interviews and see if he's still with us. His mic is still muted, so he may be.
Oh, I'm just fighting with Ted. Don't worry.
You got a 15-second penalty for talking to Toto.
You're okay. You're okay.
So what's happening out there, Chris?
Well, at the moment, Fred Vasseur has just shown up to speak to some of the media, and I'll keep my voice down so I don't get on his interview, to explain what happened to Ferrari. So, big question, obviously, as you guys were just looking at, is what happened with Charles. But obviously, as well, just the lack of pace. It's 48 seconds, the gap to Verstappen from Sainz. So, we're gonna put that to him in a bit. But yeah, I'm about third or fourth in queue on that front.
Chris,
just make sure he doesn't get away from us.
On that subject, there was obviously a lot of rumblings at Ferrari way into last year when it started to go horribly wrong, and the Todd squad, as it were, the sort of murmurings behind the scenes were to get rid of Binotto. Do you feel that, forget what happened with one of the cars today, do you feel that Ferrari are settling down now into a new era?
I think it's too early to say, to be honest. I'd love to say yes.
Yeah.
But you've got to look at the history of the team and kind of how things have gone, and it's just ruthless. Nice guys don't seem to last there very long. Nobody lasts there very long if they're not winning. So I'd say a bit too early to say. I think there's a lot of goodwill around it, but whether that actually goes anywhere, we'll have to wait and see. But it's going to be tough for anyone, really. I mean, Mercedes. We've heard Toto speak very bluntly recently about what they need to do because they're just not at Red Bull's level. And I think unless you're Aston Martin, the other two big teams, pressure's already on because of that gap.
Yeah, good point.
Jonathan, you and I were talking about how Alonso he just looked like he did everything right today. He had a couple of little wiggles, but I think that's just because he was pushing on the very edge the entire time there.
Yeah, and it's funny, you forget, and Bob will back me up here. Well, anybody can back me up. But, I mean, when Alonso bounced onto the scene 22 years ago, this was the sort of driving we saw from him then. He was like, everybody was like, oh, he's very young and aggressive. And yet, here he is at 41. And those passes today on Hamilton, one of the best in the business, he was racing like a 21-year-old today.
Yeah.
I mean, it just reminded me of his early Benetton days. It really did.
Now everybody's going to be watching to see how long does this last? What happens when the stuff hits the fan the first time at Aston Martin? And, good on him. He drove brilliantly. He's an inspiration. The team has done a spectacular job of putting a race car under him, and hopefully Lance Stroll, with two good hands, will be able to back him up well, and Aston Martin will be a factor, and a threat to the big three of Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes. So, let's get it on. But I think the jury has to stay out on Alonso because of the reputation he's built up over the years as being kind of it's a strong word, but a bit of a cancer in just about every team he's been in from time to time because of that aggression, I think, in large part. He wants it right and he wants it now.
Yeah, and also, if it's not going right, he tends to start working with inside the team to get it his way. Yeah. And I did worry how this relationship, it seems to me like Lawrence Stroll brought Vettel in and now has brought Alonso in to effectively move his son forward and make him a better driver, which it will do. There's no better comparison than to a 4-time or a 2-time world champion. And I do think that Lance Stroll is becoming the more complete package almost in the background, while Aston Martin are having this facelift, as it were.
Yeah, he's going to be in the background. Alonso's in the foreground. But I want to ask Dave O'Neill a question, because you brought this up while we were watching the race, Jonathan, as about about Aston Martin's really good pit stops.
Yeah.
I mean, Bob said, look, they got all new personnel, but that we're talking maybe back office. But Dave, pretty impressive that they can be, at the top of the game here now and looking good in the pit stops too. How do you make sure you're at the top of the game in that department?
Well, I think a lot's changed, and money has certainly helped when it comes to equipment. So, the latter part of the grid, you wouldn't necessarily have a car with a go-kart engine in that you could drive around the car park or in and out of the factory to do pit stops. And then, of course, the other thing is making time to do it. One of the things, even at the top levels of F1, is putting the time in and keeping it. So winter testing in particular. So you'd have testing in the factory at 4 o'clock every day. So pit stop practice, everyone gathers around, you push the car in, you go through the motions. And of course, you can only get to a certain level at that point, so when the car comes in hot, the nose is broken, every stop that isn't the same as just pushing it in and changing the tires, is something that you haven't experienced before. It might look the same, like the nose is hanging off, but there's a bit that is broken on the brake duct, or the fixing's damaged because it's got too much load on it because it's been banging on the curb and stuff like that. So what they have done is they've allocated time during winter testing to do hot stops. So the team has been ready. Car comes in every time without fail, and they'll do a hot stop. And this has kind of elevated the team in the experience they've been given all the way around. And also there's quite a few members of staff that have been moved around. You can normally tell, if we put all of us together to do a pit stop, I could get all of you to do the gun, for 4 or 5 goes. And I'd say, okay, well, Chris, you're probably more agile, and you can bend over a bit.
Whoa.
What are you saying here?
Whoa, steady.
I wouldn't count on it.
Hang on there, O'Neill.
Just because
You're not as old as those other guys.
The other guys, yeah. So you can, and what normally happens is it stays as it is. But if you have someone in the team who's, they're doing more exercises with the staff, more agile, there's more equipment there, there's more money to buy better equipment.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think long answer to the story is they've put effort in, and the effort's paying off.
Yeah.
Well, it's crazy to say that they are second in the points right now. That is just mind-blowing right now. What else from our notes, guys? I have lots of good stuff here. Alonso, I put in my notes, Alonso is actually older than our producer, Casey. I put that in my notes.
Wow. But he's not as quick.
He's not as quick.
There you go.
There you go. Okay.
Or as rich.
Or
One guy
as funny.
talk about it, I think. Let's give a shout out to Pierre Gasly. I mean,
Yeah.
making up 11 positions in that race. Otmar Safnauer, without being told us before the race, hopefully his poor qualifying was a one-off. Let's see what kind of race pace he's got. And boy, Gasly, with those penalty points and a potential race banishment hanging over his head, went out there and fought his way up into the points. Kudos.
That really shows, doesn't it, that how tight this midfield is, that the Alpine that was on the back row was the one that scored the points, and the one that was starting in the top 10 was the one that had an absolute shocker and ended up retiring after a bunch of penalties. It just doesn't matter where you start. The cars are all so competitive, everyone can have their eyes on some points.
Very true.
Crazy. Let's see what else. What'd y'all think about George Russell's race today?
Not spectacular, but not not a surprise. I actually, to be honest, after listening to Toto's interview with Chris at the start, you'd think they were going to finish last the way he was talking, but I don't think it was as bad as he made out.
What about the little battle there that he had with Lance Stroll?
Good. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not gonna say that Mercedes are a foregone conclusion yet.
Yeah. You mean like Toto Wolff did?
Not. Little gamesmanship there, perhaps. But one thing about Russell, I think he was complaining about his tires dying, and they left him out there for 2 or 3 laps. I think before he was finally passed, and then he pitted for tires. So Russell, I thought, was going to do better. I think he could have done better, and I think the tire strategy was one of the things that hampered his race just that little bit. He had the fast lap of the race for quite a long period there while he was trying to run down Alonso, and I think there was more there than he and the team produced at Mercedes.
Hey, Chris, we need to take a break, but I don't want to do that if you're about to get with Frederick Vasseur.
You're all good. Italian TV takes precedent, and then will be a little while till I can get to him. So do not worry on that front. I'm stalking some drivers, but we're all good for a break.
Okay, well, let's go to a break, and when we come back, we'll see what Chris's stalking has produced. You're listening to
Got a
Speed City
question for
F1.
him after the break.
Yeah, there we go. All right, we'll be right back after this.
I don't know if Chris is still on, but it'd be interesting to see.
We're live on the stream, and we got a bunch of cool comments here. Judas says Alonso is the GOAT, and then he follows that up with Bob Varsha is the broadcasting GOAT. and
Nah.
Check is in the mail.
Andy P says, love y'all sharing the tricks of the trade during the breaks. And then he says, Logan Sargent, easily the best thing I saw today. Love that.
Good.
Well, that's one man I'm stalking right now. I'm going to see if I can get Logan when he leaves
That would be cool.
Leaves the print pen.
Wish we'd seen more of him during the race.
Yeah, it was a bit of a quiet one, wasn't it, for him? Kind of just solidly doing his job, making no mistakes, which is a good thing.
Alonso sucked all the air out of the room on the broadcast.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, but his teammate as well, Alex Albon, did a very good job holding on for that final point. Speaking to the Albon camp, A, they were impressed with Logan's pace coming into this weekend, but B, they were a bit worried that they were not blessed with a car quick enough to really score points very regularly at all. So to get them under his belt straight away was very, very good.
Yeah, I'm curious as to why there is no branding on the side pods of the Williams. It's a very bare race car. I don't know if that's more, huh?
Yeah, all I saw was the word Stevens, whichever that is.
Yeah, and Duracell. But I mean, do they not have the sponsors, or were they worried about the sponsor logos weighing too much, or whatever it might be? Williams looks like they need a little financial help.
Another comment.
Well, admittedly,
this
is going to be just a bit of a kind of view of it from what I not understand, but have put together from some stuff. Waiting on that Gulf deal to get finalized. I think they were keeping their options open in case Gulf would invest heavily and maybe even change the livery.
Yeah,
certainly go big. So they had their options open on that front, I think. But I'll admit I don't have that on. I don't have that confirmed.
Right, here we go.
Hi guys, this is Craig Astley and you're listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
The Speed City F1 post-race show on SiriusXM is brought to you by CrowdStrike. Stop today's most sophisticated cyber attacks at the office, the racetrack, and everywhere in between. Learn more at crowdstrike.com/XM. Thank you for CrowdStrike for joining us for 2023. Fantastic sponsor. Great to have them back with us. Hey, you were saying something about George Kurtz when we were trying to get out of the break earlier. The CEO of CrowdStrike. He's a race car driver. Bob, what were you saying about him?
I think he won the first race for the GT America Championship in
St. Pete.
St. Pete this weekend.
Cool.
And
he's on it.
Is he still in that Mercedes GT?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I won't see those guys until later this year, but
is Chris still on the line?
He's muted. There he is.
Okay.
I am on the line because I'm just trying to get Alex Albon to talk more because he's been talking for ages. But Alex, a point to start the season. I mean, did you see that coming when we first came out here?
No. I was really disappointed when I lost the position to Pierre because I thought I was already in 10th. So I thought I was in 11th and I was like, oh God, let the team down here. And then it said, oh, you're in 10th now. I was like, oh, a bit of a rejuvenated energy to hold off Yuki. But it was really good. When you look at our strategic analysis comparison pace coming into this weekend, we were 10th quickest. There's no secret about that, and we did a great job to make it work. So I'm pleasantly surprised. Truthfully, we've still got work to do. We know our limitations. We know there's short-term progress we can do. So to still score points I've said it a few times now, but the Aston, of course, they've done an amazing job. They're on the podium. He grabs the headlines. But if you look at our improvement, we are second best. We've done a mega job from last year, and here we are. We're in a better fighting position. We still need a couple more tenths to be in the midfield, but I'm super happy.
Well, you're live on radio across North America, so it'd be remiss of me not to ask about your.
Told me that, so in case I swore or something.
Yeah, well, it's remiss of me not to ask about your teammate Logan. Solid run to 12th as well. What's it been like working with him? How do you think he's done for his debut?
Very good. He's naturally quick. I've seen it from last year, from his time in F2, his pole positions, and just his general pace. So yeah, it was to me it was to be expected, but obviously maybe to everyone else it wasn't to be seen. Yeah, it's great because also we're fighting the same things. We're talking the same comments. Of course, he doesn't have the experience of myself, but he has the right language and the right attitude where, when we need stuff changed, factory, aero, whatever it may be, we're pushing the same things. So it's pretty clear to everyone back in Grove what we need. And yeah, it's I'm sure it's the start of a good relationship, and he definitely keeps me on my toes.
Yeah, it looks like you'll do that, but you dealt with that very well today. Great work. There he is.
There we go.
Excellent
run
stuff.
in the other direction now, but that's a very happy Alex Albon, big smile on his face. And just to let you know, most Formula One drivers are very short. But there's a period in that interview where I was walking down the paddock on a raised curb just because it's so busy, and it got me to Alex's height.
Wow.
So he's
a
tall guy in there.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll tell you what, that's the most positive words I've heard about Williams in 2 years.
Yeah.
And I think we would not miss that story, but it wouldn't be a headline story just how well Williams did today compared to the last 2 years. And Albon's the perfect guy to judge that.
Yeah. What did he say, Chris, when you told him he was live on radio across North America?
He didn't want to swear.
Oh.
Yeah, he said I could have let him know because he didn't want to swear. But that's the thing, to be fair to these drivers, is that they are doing interviews all the time. They're kind of running from microphone to microphone, or he'd just done, I think he was on Sky TV and was like, right, I can finally walk to the other end of the paddock and see my team. And I suddenly appear with another mic stuck in his face. So they don't, half the time, I don't think they look. They're just kind of ask the questions and I'll give the answers. It's a big, tough part of the job for them. But yeah, he more than willing to do so with a smile on his face. Unlike, I will let you know, Lando Norris, so a little bit earlier, I did try and catch his eye, and I've not seen anyone move so quickly without running with a fake smile on their face. I mean, what a rough day for him having to top up the air in that car every 7 or 8 laps, 6 pit stops. Sometimes it was quick when it was on track, but just, awful day in terms of not getting any clear running.
Hey, Chris, we got a caller on the line. I'm going to get him in, but if you get somebody, just interrupt all of us. But we got George, who's been hanging on the line since we went live. George in Virginia. Hey, George, how are you, buddy?
Hey, gentlemen. First, happy 2023 season, and you guys do a great, great job. This is my go-to F1 hub, period.
Good man.
Thanks, George.
Great. Thank you.
Enough is going to be talked about the front because something tells me this is becoming early 2000 Ferrari shoemaker. It's just total dominance.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But let me say here, to be honest.
So sorry to interrupt, especially a caller, but we've got an American live on the
George.
show, and it's other than Logan Sargent. Logan, your debut is done, and it looked from the outside to be a very solid run to 12th. How did it feel from the inside the car?
Definitely an awesome day. Loved every second of it. Loved the on-track battles. I think everything operationally, from starts to pit stops to just maintaining race pace was absolutely mega. Had some good overtakes there. First lap was awesome, and loved every second of it. Proud of the team. Great job this weekend, and Alex picking up the first point of the year.
Well, I've just spoken to Alex, and he was very complimentary about your pace, but he said he knew you were going to be quick. Maybe not everyone watching F1 were ready for it and would have seen it today. But we didn't get to see a lot of you on track because of other battles. What was your highlight? What the moment we should be looking for when we see the highlights?
Oh, well, the first lap was very good for both of us, to be honest. We both had great starts. I struggle to remember. I remember there was a good battle there with Nick and with Zoo there at the end. So that was really fun. But to be honest, I fell into a bit of a more lonely race in the middle, but that's all right. I'm just super proud of what we achieved this weekend as a team.
Well, I can tell everyone listening that Logan's got a big smile on his face, but I bet you're tired after this weekend as well. So
we could hear
what's it
that
done for your
smile.
confidence heading into the rest of the season.
To be honest, I knew everything we did today was possible if we were able to find the pace in the car, and I just really showed myself that I can perform at a high level against the top guys of the sport. And I still expect difficulties along the way. I know we're going to a few tracks that are extremely difficult, tracks I don't know that well, so I'm gonna have to stay on top of my game, keep prepping to the best of my ability, and just keep improving as a driver.
Well, I'll let you get back to your team, but well done today. Thanks for your time, Logan.
Wow, you know what? I love what he said about that, because he was a little bit. There were some questions whether he's just there because he's an American. I know he had a good resume, but there was definitely a hole or two. But the fact that he said, I'm performing at a high level with the rest of everyone. In other words, I belong here, is what he was saying.
Oh, absolutely. There wasn't a case of new boy in, it was all coming at me. No, like I said at the beginning of the show, it was like he was born for this. And he's taking to it, as you'd hope a rookie would, because it is such a leap. And there is only 20 guys in the world that could do it or get the chance to do it. And to be able to just walk in there and, like he says, operational, all of those stuff. Let's get back to George, though.
Yeah. Hey, George.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, George.
We didn't mean to cut you off, buddy.
No problem. It's always good to make room for American on the grid. I will please just, it's a beautiful thing to see. But I know it's early, but let's discuss McLaren and Haas. What happened? It was testing. Did they actually do a test, or they just kind of, please explain to me. And I've been following F1 since the 70s. There's no improvements, and they have money, even Haas, and the regulations. Please explain, gentlemen, why the results aren't showing.
Let's go to Bob.
Okay.
Just kidding. Well, I was like, I don't want that one.
I'll give you a one-word answer.
Go
Mercedes.
Yeah.
There's a team that won 8 championships, or 7, I should say, in the constructors category. They've got all the money in the world. They've got all the technology in the world. And yet they came up with, by their standards, a mediocre car. That can happen. I'm sure Dave O'Neill can add to this. You make decisions. You go down a certain path with technology. And, sometimes you miss the bullseye and the clock just will not lie.
Yeah, and I think I would add to that, George. Yeah, you're seeing now in modern Formula One a lack of testing. 3 days in Bahrain, that was all. Usually, remember, you have 2 preseason tests, and it used to be back in the day that you'd have a lot more. So they're rolling out of Abu Dhabi, at the end of November, December. And, if they haven't already got the basics of a good car for the following year by the time they get to Abu Dhabi for the last year, then, as you can see, that McLaren are going to be chasing it. There was a good interview with Zach Brown on Sky where he said, when are you going to have some upgrades? And he said, in a few races' time. And that's the reality, is that, you're in the Middle East to start it all off. You're nowhere near your own factory. If things aren't 100%, there's not a lot you can do. And there's still that human factor of being home in your factory and rethinking things.
I feel for the North American's biggest McLaren fan, Andy P., who's a big fan of the show. We'll see how he's doing. Hopefully he's not crying in his milk. Hey, Chris, I hear your mic light up. What's going on?
I'm just hovering, but I'm not sure if I'm hovering at a good time or a bad time. I'm going to see if Lance is up for talking, but he's been doing a lot of interviews and signing autographs with a broken wrist as well. Lance, I'll keep it short for you. You got a smile on his face for that one. How's it feeling, first of all, after a race distance?
Yeah, not amazing, but feels all right after some good points. So,
I've got to say, I was watching that into the final 5 laps. You're chasing down Lewis Hamilton. You're doing lap times quicker than a Mercedes and a Ferrari in front of that. Having not even tested this car, let alone with the injury. How did you do it?
Just grinding it out. It was great to drive the car today. It had a great balance, and we were really good on the tires. So, yeah, great day for the team.
Big heart and mouth moment though at the start, wasn't there, on the first lap?
Yeah, man, that was a big bullet dodged.
I mean, how tricky was that to handle? Because I think I saw your left hand had to come off the wheel to get that.
Wasn't fun on my wrist, but yeah, it took a couple laps and then pain came down and I was okay.
Well, just finally then, what's the plan now for the next couple of weeks? What more rehab? I mean, how strong do you hope to get it by the time we get to Jeddah?
Yeah, it should be much better in Jeddah. So that's the plan.
Okay, well, good luck with that and well done today.
Big bullet dodged.
Yeah, that's a great line of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not kidding, is he? Crikey.
Yeah, how many implications of that bullet? Not just hitting your teammate, but hitting Alonso and having your dad as the team owner. Oh, lots of bullets dodged there. Hey guys, we got to squeeze in a break here, so let's do that. And when we come back, we'll continue to break down the Formula One Bahrain Grand Prix after this. By the way, when Logan Sargent was talking, Chris said something about his big smile. I could hear that smile.
Oh, you could hear it. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's because I've interviewed him, but you could hear.
Oh, no. Well, because he's quite a straight-laced guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I just got my notification about IndyCar going on.
What about it?
Yeah,
they should be up and running right now.
Yeah, I heard he messaged saying that on Sky that a lot of fans were very happy because the Bahrain GP ended and they were like, not a great race, and they were straight into the IndyCar.
Yeah, no
like,
kidding.
Okay, this might be better.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Grosjean on pole. What could go wrong?
I know with Grosjean. Yeah, what was it? Andretti. Yeah, the Andretti team had another. Who was right behind him?
They had a 1-2.
Colton Herta.
Colton Herta. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
How long's our break, guys? By the way, because I can get
2 minutes.
Next.
They're two.
Hey, did you get
1 minute
Mike
left.
Crack, by the way?
Not yet. I've dropped a message. I've seen him do an interview or two. I'm going to run back down there, but I was chasing drivers back up and down the grid. Or the paddock, should I say? Don't even know where I am.
Andy P replied. He says, "Don't worry, guys. I'm okay." Like he's just really seriously.
He's just a little papaya.
I've seen some bad weekends before.
Yeah.
He said something about
Suicide Watch after all.
He said, "Tune into his podcast to hear." I forgot the name of his podcast.
Well, he'll put it
Outlap podcast. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Andy.
Just checking what's left on the break.
About 30 seconds.
Perfect.
Less than 30.
Hell of a job, Chris.
Great
Keep
stuff.
going, mate.
It's all about the timing. Sometimes you're lucky, sometimes you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, just stick a microphone in if we can't do an introduction.
Elbows out.
Me. Yeah.
I hear you giggling back there, Dave.
I think you should sit down with Sky's,
Hello, I'm Jenny Gow from BBC F1. You are listening to Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
You know, I just heard her do an intro to the podcast for BBC. What's it called?
Checkered Flag.
Checkered Flag, and she sounded pretty
Checkered
good.
Flag.
Yeah, she sounded pretty good. So, Chris, what's going on? You hovering still?
Oh, I am. I'm properly ready to pounce now. Fred Varsha is just finishing up yet another TV interview. I'm going to get a fake camera and just carry it around with me so people think I'm on TV. And then I believe we are going to be in, which might be right now. It is right now. Fred's coming over. He's so excited to speak to us because he's not been doing many interviews. At least I've made him laugh. Fred, we'll start with negative and move forward. So can you tell us what happened with Charles' car?
We had an issue on the PU side. I think it's coming from the electrical side of the PU, but we don't know yet.
And did that feel like a comfortable podium? Do you think you have Alonso covered off with his car?
It's never comfortable, but I think, yeah, would have been able to manage Alonso.
Well, based on that then, the pace you saw from Charles and from Carlos at times during this race, how do you kind of view how the Grand Prix went? Is it about what you were expecting or any disappointment there?
No, it's only after race one that you can have a clear picture about the situation, that on some aspect we are, I would say, that where we want to be in terms of one lap performance. For example, we were able to match Red Bull in quali, and I would say that we were in a good shape. Where we have to massively improve is reliability. and then the degradation, because that even if compared to probably Alonso or Mercedes, we are there. Compared to Red Bull, it was a bit different.
Well, there are items you said you wanted to change here anyway when you came in. You said reliability was one thing. How long does that sort of thing take in a Formula One team? Because nothing happens overnight, does it?
No, but first we need to understand exactly what's happened today. But when I spoke about reliability, it's the global picture that we are too fragile over the weekend with small issues there and there, and we have to fix it clearly if we want to be competitive, because that you can finish one weekend, but if you have too many issues during the weekend, that at one stage that you will be dead.
Well, you've seen the final finishing order from this race. Do you set targets now? You've seen that? Is it, do you realistically say, okay, championship will be tough? What do you do when you react to the first race?
No, I think it would be a mistake. And I said before to the team before the event, guys, that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter, but the results of Sunday won't be the results of the championship. It means that you experience it in the past on both ways. That it means that we have to stay focused to draw a conclusion after Sunday and to try to do the best to improve the situation for the race too. And then we'll have 23 races to do. But honestly, I think that the most important is to stay calm, to do a proper analysis of the situation, to understand where we are weak, because we are weak on some points, and we don't have to be blind, and to push to correct it as soon as possible.
Is that gap to Red Bull one you can close?
I hope so.
I think we all do. Thank you very much, Fred. Thank you. Well done.
Good stuff.
Does anybody besides me, with all due respect to Fred Vasseur, think of Inspector Clouseau when you hear that French accent? I wonder if he has bought or rented his rim in Maranello.
Rim? It's not my rim. It's not my dog.
Do I have a what?
A what?
A hamburger?
I have to say, though, laughing aside, I do love the way the French talk. The line I picked up was, "We are too fragile over the weekend."
I do. That is a great use of language, isn't it?
Because it sums up Ferrari's issue.
You're just like me. I love to hear those words. That it's fragile.
Fragile.
Especially from a woman.
Okay.
Yes, that's better.
I wouldn't call Fred that, but that's an interesting observation.
Oh, no. I mean, Fred is fine, but I love the females
of
speaking
course.
with it.
Absolutely. All day long.
Hey,
well, just at that moment, I'm going to bring David, because I wanted to ask him actually, though, how damaging is it, things that Fred just talked about in terms of, little details during a race weekend that maybe when we're not paying that much attention in FP2 and, something stops a long run briefly, or there's an issue that means you're not getting great data. How costly can those things be come Sunday afternoon?
Very. You're at a disadvantage straight away. If you have the runs that you want to get in, whether they're full tank runs, i.e., the car's full of gas, or low runs, if you don't achieve those targets, you can't work out the deg on the tires. So you go through the 3 sets of tires that you would use, and you gather all that data, and the numbers need to be crunched at the other end. So it is really, even if you go down kind of 2 or 3 laps, it's a huge disadvantage for the big picture at the end.
Yeah, and Dave would know, former Haas F1 team manager.
Yeah,
he would certainly know that.
I think we forget just how long these checklists are and all the things the teams have to figure out. How's the tire working, in what circumstances, with what pressures and cambering settings, and all these different things in anticipation of what they might be facing during the race. And that's why we always say when it rains, throw everything out the window, because that changes everything.
I think as well, good point as well, Bob, but the other thing is, if you look at the ambient change, which also concurs with the track temperature change, there was a 30-degree difference. So as you're practicing, as the sun's going down, all your data kind of exponentially changes to get your end result, which is huge, especially with the teams up the top. It makes more of a difference as well. You can kind of play catch up a little bit down the back end. Mm-hmm. But, I think it's difficult for Fred to come in and make these huge changes. He only stepped in just before Christmas. Mm-hmm. And most of the plans, the way the car's designed, etc., is all in full flow August of the year you're racing. So can't give him his room back yet, but you've got to give him at least a year to get his foot under the carpet.
His foot under the carpet.
I think he's, whether he knows much about engines or gearboxes doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I think the fact is that he is a strategist. He's very clever, and once he gets the big ship with the small rudders moving in the correct direction, I think we can see some movement there.
Yeah,
he's a real no BS kind of guy, which is good to have.
Yeah,
and it's what Ferrari needs.
Yeah, and you can't say that he could have fixed reliability this quick. So yeah,
I think people underestimate Fred because he's kind of joking and laughing and smiling, and I wouldn't have got Mattia Binotto last year, for example, to laugh when I started the interview, but he's steely determination and he is ruthless if he needs to be. So it's just different approaches, isn't it, to maybe to the media or to the outside world, but that doesn't mean that they don't make the tough decisions.
Yeah. I had in my notes my favorite team radio of the day, and that was when Fernando Alonso said, and on the cusp of his first podium since 21, he said, "This is a lovely car to drive." And
it doesn't feel like a GP2 car.
Yeah. But you could just tell that he was just already basking in the glow.
But he was almost laughing at himself in the same line, knowing that he's the one that's been so vociferous about a dogs of cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, plenty of other drivers, I think, were meant to hear that message. In some way, shape, or form.
I'll
tell you what, there's someone else.
Hey, Chris.
Hang on. Sorry, no, I've got to get my elbows out, I'm afraid, chaps, because there's someone else who has a very, very nice car, not to drive, because they're not the one driving it. But I'm about to interrupt them, enjoying a coffee. I think can't quite see what's in the cup, but they're having a cup of tea. Very British. But I mean, it's what time is it in the UK? 6:30. It's quite late for a cuppa. Anyway, Christian Horner is who I'm speaking to, and you guys are all guessing there. Christian,
celebratory
1-2. The car looked the class of the field comfortably. I mean, did that just prove out everything you were hoping for today?
Well, look, I think it's just been a wonderful team effort. I think everybody throughout the team has contributed to this, and it's great to see.
I'm just interrupting Christian when he's trying to, congratulate some of the team members who have put in that hard work, you say.
The Constructors Trophy. So Rob's been out with us a long time. He's looks after all the electronics trackside and does a great job. And so, it was great to see him get the trophy today.
Well, dare I say it, I think you're going to get to pick a number of team members to pick up the Constructors Trophy based on the pace you showed today compared to everyone else. I mean, how confident are you in, I guess, the car you've built being able to be the class of the field for the season? Because it looked like you had a lot in hand.
Well, look, I think we biased the race, but, the drivers still did a great job. And the problem is we've only seen a sample of this circuit. None of the cars have run anywhere else. So this worked for us here. Will it be the same in Jeddah or Melbourne? I think we need to wait and see. There's an awful lot of racing on an awful lot of different venues.
Well, how much did you have to get this car right out of the box? Because we've talked about it towards the end of last year, start of this year, with the cost cap penalty that you'll have limited development. So how crucial was it to get the car strong straight away?
It was very important for us to start with a strong basis, because then if you're dealing with fundamental issues, we just don't have the development time to be able to react to that. So I think what's really pleasing is to have, that solid starting point.
And a word on Max. I mean, when you come off 2 championships and then you dominate like that, he must be top of the world right now.
Well, I think it was a very cool race for Max. He managed it well. He looked after the tires. The degradation was always going to be an issue here, and he's becoming a bit of a master of that. So, and both drivers, they both did a great job today.
And one last question was, I asked you on the grid who your biggest threat was going to be. Didn't look clear for half of that race, to be honest, whether it was Ferrari or Aston Martin or Mercedes. Is that a good or a bad thing for you, having 3 teams there, but none of them quite nipping at your heels enough?
Well, look, they're all going to develop and have their strengths and weaknesses. So I think it's good for Formula One to have more competitive teams. So let's see.
Well, we do. Well done. Thank you very much, Christian. That's a very happy Christian Horner. As you can imagine, I genuinely thought he was going to have something more exciting in his cup. That's why I started talking about it. And it turned out it was a cup of tea,
Give it a
which
sniff.
was mega, wasn't it? Actually,
he said it was
there's
tea.
Different brown liquids.
You didn't get to taste it or sniff it.
No, I didn't.
That's
I
how the
thought
British
it was rude
celebrate
enough.
this with a cup of tea. We move to the
Exactly,
wine
yeah.
later.
You know,
boy. I don't know if he said master or monster when talking about
both
Max Verstappen, but I think either one, right?
Yeah,
works.
it works.
Yeah.
What he said reminded me of what Dave O'Neill just said a minute ago when Chris asked him about, starting the season like this. It's like, when you start on the back foot, like Ferrari's doing, you struggle. Well, here they are, Red Bull starting out of the gate great. Chris, I wanted you to ask him what somebody said on our YouTube stream. Said, can they win all of the races this year? But I think
I'll tell you what, that would be off the back of maybe second, third, fourth, let's go fourth race, Baku. We've got a sprint race there, haven't we? We're going to have had a big gap where teams can develop things. Now, McLaren aren't in the mix, but they've already talked about how big their upgrade's going to be for Baku, that they think will give them a big step forward. So I think that will be the one where if they've won the first three and they win what can be a completely crazy, chaotic race, that's when that question genuinely will come out and be like, is that the advantage you've got? Can you target that? Because, I mean, no one's ever done it before.
Chris, I've got a project for you. When you finally sally forth home and get your own cup of tea, I want you to head down to Aston Martin. Their smart factory is coming online in May 2023. So we used the word ominous about Red Bull. Could Aston Martin be tying their current form with the launch of their new factory? I mean, it is another prospect worth thinking about, isn't it?
Well, do you know, I've actually been there. I went down there in December to see the progress at the time there, got shown around. And the kind of head of the whole development and the whole overseeing the whole construction, basically, as a guy who was brought out of retirement, having overseen the building of lots of other factories, including, I believe, the MTC from McLaren. But the big one was he'd even overseen the construction of the original Jordan factory that they're now knocking down.
Yeah.
And that little building pales into insignificance. It's smaller than one of the three buildings that Aston Martin are now building. It's an enormous facility, but very impressive. Something they've done it's very functional, but still an impressive setup. So yeah, I mean, that's all really looking to move them forward. But that's what's so impressive about this car. That's not been developed in that factory yet, because it's not finished. All the personnel are still working out of porter cabins and the old factory at Jordan. So that's pretty much all on the personnel and kind of their work processes and the wind tunnel, which is the Mercedes wind tunnel they use. Yeah, very, very impressive. And I think there was a little bit of a concern that Aston, when it was Force India and Racing Point, was able to produce cars that seemed even quicker than essentially what they should have been able to with their budget and their personnel. And everyone talked about them punching above their weight. It was the opposite last year, wasn't it? They had the money and they couldn't do it. But this time, yeah, they've put it all together, and that's before those facilities come online. So yeah, very, very impressive. But yeah, so sorry, long story short, I will go back down there and check it out for you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to talk to a caller who's been holding for 42 minutes.
No!
So, yes, we're gonna talk to Corvette Mike. But
he's probably done 2 states in that time.
yeah. All right. Listen to Speed City. Back after these messages. All right, we're still
so
live.
sorry to keep Corvette Mike waiting there with my long rant on Aston Martin.
That's all right. He's behind the wheel of an 18-wheeler, man. He's just cruising along.
Yeah,
full of Corvettes.
Well, is he going to be willing? Oh, sorry, I was going to say, is he going to be willing to wait for Gunther after the break?
Oh yeah.
Yes, he is.
Cool. Sorry, Dave. Gone.
Oh, sorry. I've got a theory on the Aston using the Mercedes wind tunnel. Model. Maybe they picked one up and
yeah,
it over by mistake.
Could be. I just wonder whether Toto's going to be giving out nice customer engines of full power anymore.
Or accidentally running the Aston car in the wind tunnel themselves to see what the difference is. They want some side pods.
Hey Chris, I got the CrowdStrike live read when we come back too. So is Gunther? Are you nearby, Gunther?
I am.
Wasn't it Aston Martin that was accused of copying the Mercedes a few years ago?
Yeah, the pink Mercedes.
Right. Yeah.
Wow, yeah. So now they go the other way.
Yeah. What'd you say, Chris?
I said he's just finishing up with Tom Christensen, and I was just getting run over by a trolley of Pirellis because I was being an idiot and not looking around.
and maybe the lawyer in me, but I bet people are going through their contracts with Mercedes saying, now, what does it say I have to give up to them in return for the customer engine program? Do they have to be able to look at my drawings
Your
and
data and
six Mercedes engines in the top 12.
Yeah, that's pretty stout.
CrowdStrike shook up the read. I did it. I'm not going to say it out loud. Never mind. I did it a while ago, error-free on the first run.
Oh, you've done it now.
I know.
Oh, now
you've done it. Oh, Bob. He
What a
had to go
rookie.
there, didn't he? Yeah. Here we
Not a
go.
chance now.
Good luck, John.
Funky.
Hello to everyone. This is Gunther Steiner. This is Speed City.
Welcome back to the fastest hour in radio, Speed City.
While Chris Medland lurks waiting for Gunther, I'll do our live read from our sponsor, CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike presents Driven in 60. As the official cybersecurity partner of the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team, CrowdStrike protects against cyber threats so the team can focus on what matters, their next win. The revolutionary cloud-native unified CrowdStrike Falcon platform harnesses the speed and power of the cloud to protect and defend organizations of all sizes against increasingly complex threats, stopping breaches before they happen. Because on and off the track, the stakes couldn't be higher. A split second can make the difference between victory and defeat. When every second counts, protection shouldn't slow you down. It should fuel your momentum. CrowdStrike, protection at every turn. To learn more and to try CrowdStrike Falcon free today, visit crowdstrike.com/XM.
Nailed it!
Well done.
Gosh.
One little burble in there somewhere.
Nah, that was
nearly an error.
Having been put under the pressure there of a qualifying lap, you came up. Good.
That's right. That was a quality pressure.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a good job you did your job better than I did mine, because Gunther wanted to go into debrief and he's got a very serious look on his face. He just grabbed Nico Hulkenberg to go in there. So as he walked by me, he just shook his head, pointed and went, I need to go now. That wasn't my attempt at his accent, I promise. Yeah, so
I've got to go and hug the Hulk.
Yeah, exactly.
He's going to hug the Hulk.
And I'm similarly told, actually, everyone who's been listening over the weekend, I was told we'd get to speak to Mike Crack, and we are going to get to speak to Mike Crack tonight.
Good.
But it looks like it'll be quite late, so I'm afraid this will be a plug for the midweek show on Wheel to Wheel, where we'll get a debrief with Aston Martin on.
I do think that interview or that conversation becomes probably one of the most interesting things in Formula One right now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, certainly does. Certainly does. It's going to be really interesting. It's going to be really interesting to see kind of how they view it, because there was a point in the race where I thought we're going to have to try and remind people where Aston are coming from if they finish 6th and 8th, or if Stroll fades and because he's not fit. So I was ready to kind of try and remind people of the gains they've made. So to get onto the podium, I mean, they must be they are absolutely buzzing. I've seen some of the mechanics having a little bit of a celebration as they start packing up. I think the only ones that are not so delighted right now are the media team, because everybody wants to speak to someone from their team. But I've got maybe the biggest indicator, and I will admit this is probably one I can't grab us, but Lawrence Stroll is now speaking to Sky Sports about how the weekend's gone. And, it's kind of rare that we see Lawrence talk too much. He kind of likes to stay largely behind the scenes during race weekends, but he's obviously very proud of what they've done.
He's probably the most intimidating guy in Formula One right now, Chris. It feels like to me. What do you're there on the ground. What do you think?
Always up there. I mean, yeah, actually, got to be one of, because Bernie walked into the paddock earlier and hardly anyone batted an eyelid, because Bernie wields no power over this place anymore. So
you're right. How did he get a credential for crying out loud?
Well, he's very good friends with the Crown Prince here.
He's small enough to go under the turnstiles.
Right.
Stop it.
But he's still got plenty of fans, I will admit. I was actually chatting away with a friend of the show, Dan DeMonte, who's the CMO at the Skip Barber Racing School, and he suddenly went to me, is that Bernie? I was like, yeah. And he's like, what's he doing here? And I'm like, well, he gets a pass to come to this race all the time. He's like, do you think he'll mind if I say hello? I'm like, you could try. And he did get to shake his hand and say he's a big fan of what he'd done, which I think was got to be nice for Bernie to hear, because let's be honest, that this sport is booming right now, and there's a lot that Bernie didn't get right, or certainly shouldn't have said,
or wished he had done.
Still built it up. Yeah, I mean, there's this sport went from just garagistas just running cars and no professionalism to this huge multi-billion-dollar industry.
Well, all I can say is that if I'm his age and I'm married to a Brazilian lawyer of 35 years old, I wouldn't be going away.
Hey, Chris, if you run into the Skip Barber folks, tell them that I'm wearing my my Skip Barber shirt that I got right after my 3-day school. This shirt is like 25 years old. It's my favorite motorsports shirt. And tell them that they too could have a live read like I did for
Absolutely, we could.
I was about to say, check out
fishing.
all the free advertising. That's like, oh, it's not free advertising. But yeah, a very cool program that, having had a go. But I think what's going to be very exciting, actually, they're probably very excited by what Logan did earlier with seeing an American coming in competitively. And I know he was interrupting one caller. Have I held off another caller long enough?
Oh yeah, well let's see if Corvette Mike is still there. He is. Corvette Mike. Hey Mike, have you gone through a couple of states while you've been waiting for us to bring you on?
Well, let's say I am in the great state of Maine, up close to Bar Harbor.
I have a friend from Bar Harbor, Maine.
I'm well up here. I want to say, hey, to the guys and everyone, I'm glad the season started again. I thought it was a great race with P1 expected, P2 suspected, but P3 was out of the world. Hey, I'm really happy for Alonso. I think it was well-deserved. He's proved himself. But I have to say, I'm glad Chris yielded to it, because my real question was, what did Gunther say at the pre-race?
I'm not sure. What do you mean?
He said, we can start working about next year, right?
Oh, Toto, you mean? Yeah.
Oh, Toto.
That was Toto Wolff.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Toto. Yep. Look at me blow it on the air. All right. Yeah. With Toto.
Hey, Mike, you've done great, Mike. And I'm telling you right now, I'm going to steal that line about expected, suspected, and out of
I
the
like
field.
that line. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And what does it pay?
Checks in the mail.
Checks in the mail, buddy.
A nice round number.
Hey, Corvette Mike, when are we going to see Corvette Mike? And we call Corvette Mike because he hauls Corvettes for a living on the back of an 18-wheeler. But are we going to see any of the E-Rays? That is an impressive new American sports car, the hybrid Corvette, man. Are we going to see those on your truck soon?
I really don't have any intel on that other than it's going to be heavy.
Yeah. They're not that much heavier, though. They're only like 160 or 180 pounds heavier. And
but when you add them up at 10 at the time.
Oh, well, there you go. Didn't think about that. That's true.
Yeah. But again, love what you guys do. It's going to be a great season. I really enjoyed this race, the first one of the season, more than any I can remember in recent years.
Well, thanks, Mike. Thanks for listening, and appreciate you holding on, buddy. Hey, Chris.
I just want to pick up on that for Mike as well, actually. What I really like about that is, as we said, didn't we, pre-race, sometimes you get a really dull one at the front, and we did get that, but it wasn't unexpected. But it's about what's going on further back and not being able to call it until late in the race and seeing. I mean, we saw Alonso fighting, scrapping properly with Hamilton and Sainz. It was great. That hasn't been able to happen for a long time. And these are, Hamilton and Alonso go way back, don't they? So those sorts of battles, even someone like Albon getting the car up into 10th, Gasly coming through the field. Bottas is one, actually, I want to make sure we don't overlook. Just a really solid run, wasn't it, into the points for Valtteri. Alfa Romeo just kind of picking up where they left off last year in terms of going, all right, we'll just have a drama-free run with one of our cars and stick it in the points. So, those sorts of aspects are the bits that there's still good racing. Sadly, not for P1, but that doesn't mean it's not incredible to watch these machines going at it over, 57 laps?
Yeah, 57. Yep. Yeah, you know what? You said it earlier. You said it wasn't the most exciting race, and I had to scratch my head for a minute. I was like, yeah, at the front, but there was so much going on. There was so much going on for a good bit of the race. I was not disappointed at all.
To be honest, I was surprised at both the reliability. I keep going on about the fact that we haven't had as much testing, and they're throwing it about a bit in terms of getting everything ready. But it was actually it looked like a race from halfway through the season.
Yeah, it really did.
Yeah.
We're almost out of time,
agree.
and we have a very hard out. First, I want to thank everybody. Dave O'Neill, appreciate you tuning in or joining us, and Bob Varsha, you too, of course, over Zoom. And Chris, you and I will be Wednesday on the Wheel to Wheel show on SiriusXM ESPN 81 on Wednesday. And of course, we have our new post-qualifying show, 2 weeks. But remember, Speed City does a show every Sunday night during the off season, especially during the off weekends, because we have no Formula One race. So we'll have that next weekend. But thanks everybody for tuning in. However you tuned in, we appreciate it very much. And we'll talk to you next week. Happy trails.
Cheers.